going to be looking at is 5 steps for you to think about if you're thinking about a career change into data analytics. You can put any comments that you have in the chat. I would encourage you to do so. Also, we have a Q&A tab as well in Zoom. So any questions that you've got as we're going through, please put them in the chat. Hopefully I'll be able to answer them as I'm going along. But we're also going to be joined by Daniel Cairns towards the end of the session. He's head of our enrolments, and he will be able to answer any questions about enrolling the course, etc. So plenty of opportunity for you for those of you who are curious, to be able to have your questions answered, hopefully. But as I say, I encourage you to, I'm just trying to move my slide on. Encourage you to ask questions, make comments as we go through. It makes it a lot more interesting than just hearing my voice for the full hour. So my name is Tracy Schuff. I am a career coach here at Fourth Rev. I have been a career and executive coach for the last 13, 14 years now. I was a career changer. So 14 years ago, I was in recruitment. I had quite a successful career as a recruiter, but felt there was something missing. I wasn't as, even though I was good at what I did, I wasn't as satisfied as I wanted to be. So I switched, took that leap and became a career coach, did some psychology-based coaching training and have never looked back. So I absolutely love what I do. And one of the things that myself and the other Fourth Rev coaches are really, really passionate about is helping individuals find careers that they love every bit as much as the careers that we love. So I understand some of the things that perhaps you're going through if you're thinking about a career change. Before I start talking about the steps that you can think about in thinking about changing a career, I just want to mention briefly the relationship between Fourth Rev and LSE. So we've been running the data analytics course in partnership with LSE now for a couple of years, or perhaps even more than that. And the reason the relationship works quite well is we have the academic rigor of being backed by a very strong, well-known quality university, together with our relationships with business. So when we put together the Data Analytics Career Accelerator, yes, we want you to learn a lot, but we also want it to be practical. We want it to make you more employable than when you started the course. So it's that combination of academic rigor plus the employability aspects of the course that makes our career accelerators so strong. Okay. So takeaways from today, a few things. Confidence is a key word, I think, when you're thinking about making a change, and it's hopefully to give you a little bit more information to be able to decide if a career change is the right move for you. And if it is, it's understanding yourself more so that you can then articulate into the market what it is that you're bringing that will make you a great data analyst, or whichever route you want to take. We also want to look at any barriers that might be in your way, and these could be real barriers, but more often than not, these could be perceived internal barriers, things that people put in their own way of achieving success. So we'll start to unpick some of those barriers and help you work out, whether they are barriers that you can break down or whether they're valid. And finally, we'll end on thinking about an action plan. So once you have decided on a career change, what you then do with the branding that we're going to be talking about, what you do with your CV, LinkedIn, to help make that transition to your new career. As I said to you before, please, any questions, ask in the Q&A, any comments that you want to make, put in the chat. So the session is going to be about an hour. At the end, you will find that there are some extra information about other webinars, other workshops, and some extra benefits that you might have. And as I also mentioned, Daniel Cairns will be here to answer any specific questions you might have about enrolling on the course. So lots to interest you at the end, so try and stay around. As I say, share questions via the Q&A function, use the chat function for everything else. We will provide you with the summary slides and the recording as well after the session is finished. So you will have that if you need, if you want to go back and review anything that we've discussed that you think might be worthwhile some extra thought. I think particularly when I talk about reflecting, reflecting is something that, if you're not used to it, can be a difficult skill to master. You might want to go and revisit some of the exercises that I'll talk about. Notice, Taggy, you put in barriers for me at old age. I'm sure you're not old. You've got a lot of experience. That's how I would phrase it. So absolutely, I mean, I will talk about when we talk about barriers, but we have all sorts of people that have come in and embraced our career accelerators, including the data analytics one. And these people have ranged from a variety of different backgrounds, from career starters, career changers, and also career advancers. Some of those career changers have been doing their current role for quite a long time, or have taken career breaks. Career breaks, again, we have a lot of women who have taken a career break to look after their children, that are then coming after quite a long break new into the market, and they all successfully make that transition. I think for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's about the knowledge that you will learn on the accelerator. And the second thing that we'll explore throughout this workshop is making the most of the skills that you have developed. And whatever background you've come from, you will have transferable skills. So thank you for the question. And we will talk more when we come to the barriers. But you definitely have hope. Okay, so let's launch into these 5 steps that we've identified as things for you to think about in making a career change into data analytics. The first step is to get to know yourself better. I know this sounds a bit of a strange concept, but the more you understand yourself, the more you understand what you love, what drives you, what your values are, what you're good at, what you enjoy, the better decision you will make as to what is the best next step for you. So reflection is a really important part of this process. So the first thing to think about is your motivation. Why is it that you want to make this career change? So I mentioned I was a career changer several years ago, and I noticed that I wasn't getting the same sense of satisfaction, even though I was being successful, I was placing people, I was getting new clients, I was growing a team. I just didn't have the love for what I was doing anymore. And I was lucky. I happened to be working in an environment where there were career coaches that I could speak to. And so I identified what was missing for me, and also what I was enjoying. But when you think about the motivation, be careful about the reasons why you want to move, because some people that we work with are running away from where they are, rather than rather than running towards where they would like to be. And that's a really important distinction, because if you're running away from an environment that you're not happy in, that you don't want to stay in, then great, you can run away from that, but you might be running in the wrong direction. So a much more powerful motivator is to work out where you want to run towards. What is it you would like your new career to look like? What extra things would you like to do? What things would you like to no longer do? So it's about identifying where you want to be rather than focusing on, I need to be away from where I am. Okay, that might be the first step in getting you to think about the future, but don't just think, as long as it's not that, where you are now or where you've been, then that's quite a negative reason for changing. And when you change career, there's an awful lot of time and effort you need to put into this in terms of what you can learn, but also in terms of how you market yourself, which hopefully you'll have more of an idea of at the end of this session. But it is, if you've got a clear idea of where you're heading to, it can be much, much stronger in terms of your time and energy and enthusiasm for getting that goal, rather than just, I don't want to be here. The other thing to think about is the bigger picture, and there's a couple of things I mean by that. So the first thing is, where does your career sit with the rest of your life? So it's quite difficult to think of your job or your career in isolation from everything else. So what do you want to get from your career, and where does that sit in your wider life? There's a really good tool, been around forever, called the Circle of Life. No, it's not called the Circle of Life. If you Google Circle of Life, you'll get the Lion King. I mean, the Wheel of Life. Really important distinction, as uplifting as the Lion King is at the beginning, but it's about the Wheel of Life. The Wheel of Life is basically a circle with 8 different segments. And each of those segments you populate with what you feel is important for you. So money could be a segment, intellectual challenge could be a segment. But then you might have a segment for, you might have a creative side to you that's not coming out, or you want more of a challenge, you want to make sure you're constantly challenged. So it's great for you to be able to populate it with things to do with work, but also the other things. You might want time for friends and family, you might want time for your own health and fitness. But what is it that makes up your wheel? If you understand that, you can then see where your career fits into that, which will then help you develop your longer term plans into what's important to you in the future. So bigger picture is about, where does your career sit with the rest of your life? The bigger picture is also about the future. And this is quite a tricky thing to think about. But if you can understand what success looks like for you, then it will help you make a really good decision as to the next step, because that is the first step on this new path in this new career direction that you're taking. So if you can visualize yourself in 5-10 years time, then it might help you understand the right next step. People visualize this in different ways. So some people literally draw a picture of what success looks like, what will be happening to them if they feel they're successful in their career. Other people want to talk it out. So talk to friends and family about what a successful career looks like for you, so that you've got a clearer idea. And try not to think of sort of 5-10 year plans in terms of job titles. One, because job titles mean lots of different things. Even the word data analyst means, several different things. But also because the world of work and data is changing, and I'm not sure we can predict what the job titles will be in 5 or 10 years time. What I do know is, if the heart of it, you will be able to shape your career. But it's thinking more about the what success looks like. So you may say, do you know, I'd love to be a guru. I want to be known as the expert. I'd like to speak at conferences. Or it could be, I want to develop and get into the management route. So start off in the technical data area, but then move into management so that, I understand the wider business objectives, get involved with the business, not just the data. So just try and think generally what success looks like, because as I say, it's easier for you then to plot back the steps that you need to take to be able to achieve that success, whatever that looks like for you. So motivation, bigger picture. Now, as part of this future thinking, there's a couple of exercises that you can do if you're finding it tricky. One is to think about a really good friend that you have right now. Now, that friend, for some reason, you lose contact with them. And then in 20 years' time, or maybe if that's too far for some of you, 10 years' time, you bump into that friend in the street one day and grab a coffee. Just in a quiet, reflective moment, think about what you would like to say to your friend about what's happened to you in those intervening 20 years. Now, that will be everything. It'll be your whole life, not just your career. But you might find that some things come out of that exercise that make you think, oh, actually, I hadn't realized, but I really do want to be known as X, or start my own company, or be seen as a guru and speak at a major event. Whatever is important to you. So it can be really, really helpful for you to try to do that exercise. The other one is the one I've put on the slide, which is regret minimization. So this is a technique where you try and think about what you would regret if you either change careers or don't change. I'll explain in a second, but this is something that Jeff Bezos talks about, because he did it when he was thinking about starting up Amazon. And it's saying to yourself, in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years' time, if I stay doing what I'm doing now, what would I regret? And if I stay doing what I'm doing now, how can I mitigate those regrets? How can I do something about not having those regrets? And I talk about regrets because actually, as you get older, I found as I've got older, it's the things that I didn't try that I regret, and that eats away at me more than maybe something that I've tried that perhaps didn't work out. I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. So this is why I'm sort of focusing on regrets. The other thing then to do, after thinking about your current career and carrying on with that, think about a careers change. You've become a data analyst and then gone on. So in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years' time, is there anything that you're regretting? And again, how do you mitigate those regrets? So it's another way of doing future thinking, but it might just help you work out what is the right thing for you to be doing. So that's some sort of future reflection, which is, as I say, tricky, but really, really vital for you being able to understand yourself better and therefore make the right decisions about your career move. The other thing is to reflect on what you have right now. Reflect on what drives you, what gets you out of bed in the morning, what really excites you. And I encourage people to think about good days at work. If you think back at a day at work where you thought, actually, that was really great. So for you, that could be you just solved a really, really difficult problem and it felt just brilliant because you'd resolved it and you came up with a really innovative way of working out what to do. It could be that you collaborated with several people to achieve the end of a project, and it was the collaboration piece, that camaraderie, that really drove you. It could be that it's about thinking of a new process that you want to put in, or a relationship that you've built with a different part of the organization that's given you a different perspective. But try and think of those moments at work that you can say, that's a really, really good day. And note those down, because that's starting for you to understand what's driving you at work. So I talk about my career change, and I was at the good days were all about when I was talking to my candidates about their future career. And really, that was the most important thing to me in the recruitment job, and yet wasn't a big part of the of my actual job when I was a recruiter. So try and work out your good days to try and see what drives you. The other thing for me is autonomy is a massive driver for me. So it's important that I work in an environment where I can have that autonomy. So again, all about getting to know yourself. Think about your values as well. The reason for thinking about values is it really helps when we come to define what's the right culture for you. So if development, for example, is an important value, you want to work for an organization that develops people, then that needs to be in the statement of what you need. You need a culture where development is key, because you want to progress, and you want to progress quickly. So it's trying to read and talk at the same time, never good. So think about what your values are, and as I say, we'll bring those in when we look at the culture of an organization. And then the last thing is a thing about good days that I talked about. What do you really love doing? We have a question from Alexander about the structure of career coaching during the programme. So the way it's structured, you have available to you some resources that we've got in on our platform, which cover an awful lot of ground in terms of the basics of CVs, LinkedIn, mindset, interviews, lots and lots and lots of things. So you have that resource available to you, but you also have one-to-one coaching with your personal career coach. So you have a number of 50-minute sessions with your designated career coach. And in that coaching time, it's very much tailored around the individual. So we don't say on session 1 we'll do this, session 2 we'll do that, session 3 we'll do this, because each of you are individuals with different needs. So we can talk about this getting to know yourself piece. We do tend to start off with that sort of understanding of yourself. But then it might be relevant for you to move straight on to CVs, LinkedIn, that sort of thing. Or it may be that you've got lots of different ways you can go with your data analytics career and you need more reflection. We might have a session on that. It may be you decide you want to take a leadership role, so you're looking at having some leadership coaching as well as the career coaching. Same coaches, we're all career and executive coaches, so we can all do the developmental side as well as the career coaching side. So absolutely you get one-to-one coaching time, and it is very much tailored to the individual and the individual's needs. And I think you say, Alexander, you say about what's the most valuable part, and I think it is that person-centered nature of the coaching sessions. We will look at your CV and LinkedIn, and we'll talk about this a bit later in the slides, but once you understand your personal brand, we will guide you and critique your CV, your LinkedIn, and your portfolio. But it is, but we need to understand who your audience is and what your branding is first. So that's the first thing we will do. What we don't do is we don't write your CV for you. You need to put the work in. And the reason we don't do it, one of the reasons, is because it needs to be personal to you. It needs to be your personality. It needs to be your way of presenting information. So absolutely we'll help you with the branding. There's loads of stuff I know in your career about how to write CVs and what you should put on LinkedIn. We talk a lot about LinkedIn in the career coaching sessions, but it is about you need to, once you work with the coach to understand the branding, you then tweaking your CV, changing your CV, changing your LinkedIn. So hopefully that answers the question, Alexander. I will also talk about this as I'm going through the slides. So thank you for your question. And as I say, I'll talk a bit more detail about it in a second. So having thought about your drivers, your values, what you want to achieve in your career, it's then thinking about what skills and strengths you already possess. So in the chat, could some of you just say what skills you think are transferable in the world of data analytics? Anything at all? No one got any ideas about what transferable skills they might already have? Okay, presentation skills. Thank you, Alexander. Yep, really good one. Communication, absolutely. Problem solving, definitely. These are all really good analytical, yeah, definitely. But you'll learn more about that if you do the analytics, data analytics career accelerator. But the communication skills, the problem solving skills, they're really, really key for data analysts. It's it isn't just understanding the technical piece, it's having that curiosity. I think some of you used curiosity at the beginning of this session as a word to describe their mood, and that's exactly what data analysts need to have, that curiosity to understand the problem and using their data skills be able to come up with a solution to that problem. Communication skills, really, really vital. Because it's no good if you can understand the data, understand the implications, but can't actually communicate it to the rest of the business. So these are really, really great transferable skills. And the common, the word problem is coming to mind, but I'm not sure that's the right one, but the common misconception, I think that's a better word, when we start to work with learners, is that I don't have any experience as a data analyst, therefore I am starting from scratch. Absolutely not true. We've had data analysts change their career to become data analysts from all sorts of backgrounds. So teachers, well, I don't have any transferable skills. An individual might say to me, I've only, been a teacher, that's all. Well, okay, let's look. You've got fabulous communication skills. You can take complex ideas and present them in a very simple way to your audience. You've got great planning skills. You need to plan your lessons. You've probably got good conflict resolution skills in dealing with some of the parents sometimes. Good collaboration skills. Maybe you work with other teachers on initiatives. So there's loads and loads to offer. We've had architects who've become data analysts, and you think, what's the similarity there? Well, it's that attention to detail that can be really important as a data analyst. It's that communication, understanding what your stakeholder is looking for, and perhaps asking the right probing questions, because what they think they want and what they actually want might be two different things. As an analyst, it's great if you can get underneath what they're really looking for, rather than just accept what they say and produce the work that they're asking for. So it's that, again, that probing, that curiosity that architects have, because they need to understand what the client's looking for. Verica says teamwork. Yeah, brilliant. And again, if you're working in a team, now that could be a team of data analysts, that could be a team across the business, depends on what sort of organization you're thinking of going into, but really, really good transferable skills. And one thing I'm going to encourage all of you to do is try and think about those skills that you already have, because they are very, very valuable. And I used to say this in recruitment, and I say it now when I'm working with individuals. It's, don't think about what you haven't got. Think about what makes you different, that might make you, stand out. So, I don't know, for example, the teacher, you could talk about the communication skills that are stronger than perhaps someone that's come up through a very technical route and hasn't yet developed those strong communication skills. So embrace what makes you different. Don't worry about the fact that you've taken a different route. It's brilliant that you've taken a different route. This is now what you're bringing to the market. Do most career changers get an entry-level analyst position? Alexander asks. Some do, but you can actually get a much more senior position. It depends on your background. So I had a learner who was a teacher, and she'd been very successful in a teaching career, over 50 for the question that we had earlier about age. And she'd identified that she wanted to become a data analyst, but she was concerned because she was on a really good salary where she was and didn't really want to give that up. And we'd worked on all her transferable skills, and I knew as an ex-recruiter she was very marketable with the skills that she'd got. And I remember it was over Christmas, she had a bit of a wobble because it was like, oh, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. She'd resigned from a teaching job because there was a gap, you have to wait to the end of the next term, in preparation for starting her new career, but then felt a bit scared about it and scared about the salary. Anyway, we had a coaching session. I refocused her branding, refocused her, the extra things that she got to offer in terms of leading, in terms of problem solving and planning and all that side of things. And a few weeks later, and this is unusual, normally it takes a little bit longer, but literally a few weeks later, she came back and said, Tracy, I've got a job, more salary than the one I've just left or the one I'm about to leave. And that's because she had a really strong awareness of her personal brand, of what she was offering the market, which is why when I talk about the steps in changing your career, we talk about understanding the transferable skills that you've already got and really making the most of those. So thank you for that question, Alexander. Really good. So go away and take a sheet of A4 paper and fill it with all of the transferable skills that you've already got and your strengths. So strengths is something that's innate, that we naturally do. A skill is something you've learned. It doesn't really make any difference. It's still what you're offering to the market. But just in case any of you were wondering why I use those words, both those words. And that helps with the confidence. Somebody mentioned at the beginning about confidence, or maybe I was the one who said about confidence, but it was about if you start to become aware of what you've already got, it can really help you, give you that extra confidence that, yes, I can change because I'm bringing all this with me. It's not like I'm abandoning the last few years working, you're actually bringing it with you. Okay, Kat's asked an interesting question. What are the most common reasons your learners fail to make a successful career transition? Do you know, that's really interesting, Kat. I'm not sure I have analysed it, but gut feel is, well, one, I think I'd say if they're working with a career coach, I'm not sure it happens too often, because of the reasons that I'm talking about, and I will talk about in terms of getting your branding right, knowing what actions to take, really understanding yourself and what you're offering the market. I suppose it's that motivation. When I started talking, the very first step that I was talking about motivation, running away from as opposed to running towards, if you're not strongly believing in the path that you're running towards, it's harder to have the resilience that you do need when you're making a career change. Now, I have confidence that you'll be able to make the change because I've seen it happen time and time and time again. In the couple of years I've been at Forthrev, hundreds of people have made hundreds, right, but nearly hundreds of people have made that switch. So I can have more confidence than the individual, but maybe if the individual doesn't have that strong motivation, maybe it's harder to have the resilience that you need. So I'd probably say that, Kat. So that's why it's so important that you recognize why you're doing these things. It's easier to stay doing what you're doing now. Stay in your comfort zone. But back to that regret minimization, it might be easier, but you're going to regret it in 2 years, 5 years' time, because you didn't make that switch. So the switch is tougher to start with, but much, much more satisfying from a career perspective if you've done all this thinking and data analytics is the career that you want. So take all those transferable skills, combine them with the things that you love to do. And what I encourage people to do is when they've got that long list of A4 skills and strengths, cross off the things that you don't want to do anymore. So when I was switching from recruitment to being a coach, the thing I didn't want to do anymore was the selling. Because I never enjoyed it. I was never, I was successful at it, but I never was particularly comfortable at it. I like the helping bit more, which is why I became a coach. So cross off the things that you don't want to do. Now, I'm not saying the job that you will get will have none of those things, because every job has something. I mean, I absolutely love my job. I don't like the admin, but you know what job doesn't have admin? So I accept it's part of the role, but it's a lot less than if I did a different job. So what we want to do is, in your branding, we want to emphasize the things you're good at and that you love doing. And so you're taking all those things and then you're building your branding statement. That sounds very grand, your personal brand, but actually it's just a way of you communicating to the market who you are, what you're strong at, what you're bringing to your new employer. And it's having that clarity. And there's 2 words we use as coaches, that when we're working with individuals that we're aiming for and most of the time succeeding, is clarity and confidence. Clarity in direction of travel, in why you're good at what you do, and clarity in the messaging and how you're going to get there, which we'll talk about in later steps. And the confidence by talking about yourself more, by talking about your achievements as well as your strengths and skills, and all the stuff that you'll learn if you do the Career Accelerator, your confidence starts to grow. So partway through the course, different people at different times, probably typically middle of the second course, people start to believe, whatever background they've come from, I'm a data analyst, because you'll have done a tough few weeks, a couple of months on the course, and you'll start to think, yes, I can do this. So you'll be able to present it out to the market as a data analyst rather than an aspiring data analyst, which we don't encourage that at all. You are a data analyst. You'll have earned it by the time you get to the end of the accelerator. It's that confidence in yourself, in your new environment. So once you've built that personal brand, which will consist of your technical skills, your functional skills, and by that I mean the way you go about your work. So in terms of problem solving, collaboration, that sort of thing. And then your interpersonal skills, so communication skills, collaboration skills, etc. Sorry, I've just noticed the time, so that's why I was hesitating a little bit there. Right, step 3, barriers. Okay. Can anyone put into the chat what barriers, what hurdles they think have got ahead of them in changing a career? While you're thinking, when we're talking about barriers, one of my favourite phrases is the phrase, whether you think you can or think you can't, either way, you will be right. So if you think you can't be a data analyst, you probably won't be. But if you think you can and have that positive mindset, then you will be. So the important thing is to really get to grips with these hurdles, because you might find if you test the assumption it might not be valid. So Kat, thank you very much for your comment about insufficient communication, interpersonal skills. Well, first thing is that valid? Is that a genuine thought? Is that something that maybe somebody said to you years ago, interjected as fact? But it's not actually true. You might find if you start to think about the jobs that you're doing, that you've been doing, that actually you've got more communication skills than you think. And you've got better interpersonal skills. And this is where the coach can help with coaching as well. We do career coaching, but we also do developmental coaching. So if you genuinely feel it's a communication that's going to get in your way, then you can work with your coach on it. Fear of failure, and this is the understanding the root cause of your concerns. Fear of failure stops people doing lots and lots of different things, but that's why I talked about that regret minimization. Because if you don't take the leap and make a career change, it's something you might be thinking about, but you don't take that leap, then what would you regret? Because actually you're making a decision. By not making a decision, you're actually making a decision to stay where you are doing what you're doing, wrapped in that really warm comfort blanket, but it's not giving you much satisfaction. And again, one of my other things that I encourage people is to be bold. You've got support with the career accelerators, from the coach, from your student success manager, from the facilitators. So to try and mitigate any chances of failure. So it's that positive mindset that we really, really encourage. The not very technical, you'll learn a lot of technical things if you do the career accelerator. So again, what do you mean by that? You're capable of taking on technical things, in which case you are technical, you just not had the chance to explore it fully yet. And then Alexander says, competing against 20-year-olds in the job market. But this goes back to your transferable skills, Alexander. What have you got that makes you different? All the things that you have got. Yeah, lazy comfort zone fear. Yeah, and I mean, the comfort zone, as I say, is the biggest hurdle for people. This takes effort to make a change. I'm not saying it's easy, but I know it's very, very possible because it happens all the time. The great thing about my job is that myself or one of the other coaches every day, nearly every day, posts, oh, great news, so-and-so has moved from X to Y and has got themselves a really great job. And it keeps the whole company motivated because that's why we're all here. And, it is constant. Anonymous says, career transition to data analytics from finance. Yes, we have had people from a finance background go into data analytics, and it's the same things I talked about before. It's understanding those transferable skills. So, if you finance, I'm not sure whether you mean finance sector or finance like an accountant, but, if it's the accountancy piece, you will understand the importance of data, because that's, what finance do. They work with data. You probably work in a team, so you've got those team skills. So it's almost impossible to list the transitions people have made. It's physiotherapist to data analyst. It's I've mentioned before, architect, teachers, project managers, customer service, all sorts of things. People make that transition because if it's about having that desire to be a data analyst, which we talked about right at the beginning in terms of your motivation. So we talk a lot as coaches about positive mindset, and that's about, the reasons why you can do something, not the reasons why you can't. It's treating, when things don't go so well, it's treating that as a learning opportunity, not a failure. It's just, you will have learned a lot from whatever happened, and you will take that to your next job that you do. So it's if you can start to develop a positive mindset, and I would encourage you to have a look at positive mindset in more detail offline. It really, really does help change your perception to believe you can be a data analyst and not you can't. And that's why going back to that phrase, whether you think you can or think you can't, either way you'll be right. So that positive mindset of thinking you can will lead you to get to where you want to be. Okay, so we've knocked those barriers down. You understand yourself, you've built your personal brand. What's next? So the next thing is to understand your audience. So think about the sectors that you love. We've had people go into all sorts of sectors. People I'm working with at the moment, someone in fashion, they want to stay in fashion, but switch to an analyst in the fashion world. Financial services is a really common place people go to. Some people want to really give something back. They work in the not-for-profit sector as an analyst. Or another one is a sustainability. We get lots of people who want to work in the sustainability space. And so it's understanding where you want to work, what sort of sector you want to work in. As well as that, it's understanding the culture of the organisation you'd like to work for. Do you remember I talked about your values a few slides ago? It's taking those values and saying, where will I thrive? Because there's no point in going to an organisation that doesn't share your values. You won't enjoy it no matter how good the work is. You won't enjoy the experience. So think about matching your values against the culture of an organisation. Size of the organisation. You might want to work for a very big company who has a big team of data analysts, so you can learn from the other analysts. You've got the processes already there. Or you might be the opposite end of the spectrum and say, I want to be thrown in at the deep end. I'm going to work for a startup where I'm the only analyst there and I'm going to learn as I go along, or maybe somewhere in the middle. So it's understanding the size, the culture, and the sector that you want to work in. Once you've got those, then you it's what we call map the market. You've got a clear idea of your audience. You know what organizations you want to target. Coupled with your knowledge of yourself, you can then extend that brand, because you can talk in the language of your audience. So for example, going to a fintech startup, your CV will probably look different and sound different than if you want to work for, a very large financial services, HSBC, something like that, which will be a more corporate approach to your CV. So really understand your audience and tailor your CV, LinkedIn, and your portfolio, but it will all be based on that branding work that you've done. So it'll be different ways of demonstrating your brand. So your portfolio, for example, the About You section can be a lot more about you, more information in there. Your CV might be slightly shorter, LinkedIn somewhere in the middle. So it's being able to understand yourself, then understand your audience, and then you can build a really, really strong marketing collateral. Kat's asking a question, do data analyst jobs typically have a flexible schedule? How common fully remote positions are? What about hybrid work? Just like most jobs, it's there's a lot of hybrid working out there. If a data analyst, a lot. It's the sort of job you can do in hybrid. There are some fully remote jobs as well. I know a few people that have got jobs where they wanted it fully remote. They didn't want to go into the office at all, so they're available. So I think that question, I think, Kat, about the flexible schedule, the hybrid, etc., goes back to the culture of the organisation I was talking about. If it's a culture that embraces what I call treating you as a grown-up, then you will have a flexible schedule that you can fit around. I'm not sure if you want to fit around childcare or other hobbies that you do, or you have a different working pattern. You're very, very good very early in the morning. If you've got that clarity of culture, then you can address those questions that you asked. Okay, let's quickly do step 5 and then we'll hand over to questions. So step 5 is saying, okay, you've got all this marketing collateral, you've understand your branding, what do you do with it? And I call this your campaign plan, and I call it a plan deliberately. You need to get out there and let the market know your new message. The more people that know, the quicker you will get a job. So we will talk to you as coaches about working with recruiters, absolutely. But that visible job market where they advertise is 20-25% at most of all the jobs that are out there. When you're looking at the job boards, you're seeing 1 in 4, 1 in 5 jobs only. And the other 75–80% come from your networks, which I know most of you will groan at, but actually there's really simple things you can do to reach out to your networks, and also to some direct approaches. So when we were talking about that mapping the market, about understanding what organizations, we will encourage you to actually directly target those organizations to be able to find ways in. And I could talk about that in a whole new webinar, but we haven't really got time to dwell. So I know we want time for specific questions at the end. But it is important that you realise that question at the beginning about CVs and LinkedIn. You need to put work into this. You need to put work into your branding. You need to put work into your marketing collateral, CV, LinkedIn portfolio. You need to put work into this plan, reaching out to your networks, talking to recruiters, approaching companies directly. This won't just happen. But it's about this. It goes back to, again, the very first bit where we talk about motivation. If you know the reasons why you want to do this, you will be motivated to put all the work in, not just to finish the accelerator, but also to launch your campaign plan into the market and secure that really, really great job. Okay. Any questions? Thank you so much for everyone that has asked questions throughout. It's been really useful to get those questions as we've been going along. But I wanted to make sure that we've got time at the end for any questions to me as a career coach, but also to any questions to Daniel about enrolling, about the course itself. Do you want to introduce yourself, Daniel?
Yeah, whilst the audience may be thinking of any questions that are relevant and pertinent, firstly, thank you. That was a fantastic session. As always, Tracy, and a great demonstration of the value that the career coaching has in the Career Accelerator. For everyone else, my name is Daniel Cairns. I'm the head of enrolments here at Fourth Rev, and here to take you through, after Tracy's finished, any questions that you may have, or provide an overview of the actual program, the entry criteria, application process and criteria and things like that. So I'll wait until you ask away any questions that Tracy can assist you with, and then I'm all yours.
Okay, so question here about gauging a company's culture without current employees. Yeah, this is it's not as easy as looking at the job description. You can tell sometimes from a job description about the culture in terms of what they're asking for. You know, if they're talking about you know, an individual that wants to grow and develop, then you know that's important to them as one of their values. They want to grow and develop their individual employees. You can go to places like Glassdoor. Glassdoor do have comments from people that currently work at organisations. You just need to be, it's a bit like TripAdvisor or, I can't remember the other one, but you'll get some negatives, but it's the general flow rather than one or two people that didn't get through to the interview, so they're being very critical of the organisation. We as coaches are big on you making direct approaches to people, you know, approaching someone in the organisation and just maybe at your level and asking them about the culture. It's amazing how helpful people are, really amazing. People are very hesitant at making cold approaches, but it really works. Somebody, a good few months back now, but somebody approached me about being a coach at Fourth Rev. Seen an advert and they wanted to know more, and I was more than happy to have a 10-minute call with them just to give them a bit more background. So again, it's you being proactive and reaching out. The other thing I think, Anna, is about asking the right questions at interview. Don't just say, you know, what's the culture like? Obviously you can look at their website as well, but if you ask about the culture, you will get the standard sort of corporate website answer. It's asking questions like, what sort of people succeed in your organisation? Or, you know, why have you stayed so long? What are the attractive features that you find? So it's something you can find out at interview much more clearly. But before interview, it's reaching out and doing your research. But it's an art, not a science, the culture piece, definitely. Anything else for me? Nothing else coming through. I mean, as I say, it was great that you managed to ask questions as we're going along. Okay, Annie, running a business, setting up new business entities. Okay, so in terms of role names, it's very difficult, Annie, until I get to know you. I mean, in terms of what's jumping out is obviously your business acumen, your commercial acumen, rather. If you've run your own business, setting up new businesses, then you presumably will have really, really strong commercial acumen. So it's looking for analytics roles where you're working closely with the business. Because that's where you will be able to promote yourself very effectively, because you haven't just got that depth of analytics knowledge that you'll learn on the accelerator, you've also got this fantastic business knowledge. So I would suggest something that's working closely with the business. Maybe startups as well. If you know startups, it's a different way of working when you work for a startup, but that could be something where you will thrive because you understand the constantly changing nature and the uncertainty and the fact you have to do broad things, but bringing in what you can do with analytics. So I don't think there's any particular role names that come to mind, but they're the sort of environments that I think you would thrive, Annie. When you say pitching levels, you mean level you'll come in at in an organization? Yeah, so I think it's yeah. So I think it's not downplaying the experience that you've got. So you wouldn't have to come in at starting level, entry level. That's the word I'm looking for. You could come in at a more senior level because of that depth of business knowledge that you've got, and probably great communication skills and collaboration, all those other things, and resilience if you've worked for setting your business up. I can relate to that, having set my own business up many years ago. Alexander asked a question: are career coaches assigned at random or based on a person's background? They're assigned at random because we're all experienced career coaches. You have the option, if you're assigned a career coach and you feel there's a different coach that you would prefer to work with, that's absolutely fine. That happens occasionally. It's not something that happens very often, Alexander, but it does happen occasionally that people say, actually, because of this, it would be great to work with that coach. But most of the time it's random because, as I say, we've all got this broad career coaching and executive coaching background. We all understand the recruitment market, so we're all equally as qualified. Sometimes it's about chemistry, which is why we allow people to swap if they want to.